And the hits, what about this hit tonight? Robert Benchley.
Robert Benchley. Well, you know Robert Benchley because you've seen him on television for years and years. Because he was the second banana. He was the best friend in all these movies that MGM did in the 30s. He was in Pete's Dragon for Walt Disney. He was in Road to Utopia with Crosby and Hope. He was in a lot of different movies, but he was never the star. He was always the second guy.
Right. And you don't hear too much about him.
You don't hear a lot about him, although he's an amazing guy. He was one of the founding members of the Algonquin Round Table, which was the epitome and the establishment of sophisticated humor in the United States.
Really? Were there nights at that table?
Nights and days, mostly lunches. It was Robert Benchley and Dorothy Parker and Mark Conley and Groucho Marx and Edna St. Vincent Millay and Edna Ferber. All of these writers and actors and poets were gathered in New York at that time, and they all
had lunch, right?
They all had lunch.
And the whole country was on there listening to every... they all covered themselves in their articles.
That's exactly right.
Well, when did you first turn on to Benchley? In the movies?
Actually, it was my parents who did it because they were reading the articles that he wrote that were syndicated in the New Yorker magazine and in Life magazine.
Okay,
he was the drama critic
right.
for both of those magazines for years and years, from the 20s onward. And he became very famous as a writer and a speaker. And one time in 1924, 25, as an after-dinner speaker, which is something we don't have anymore because we just don't have banquets like that anymore.
What is an after-dinner speaker?
An after-dinner speaker is you have a testimonial dinner or you have some kind of a sales meeting and everybody goes, and then at the end, the entertainment is this guy who does a speech. Typically, it's humorous.
The closer.
It was very much like the closer. But Benchley made himself famous by becoming an after-dinner speaker. He started in college when he wrote a little something called Through the Alimentary Canal with Gun and Camera. And he pretended to have props, but he had no props. No one had ever done that before.
Really?
So he was pointing to nothing and using examples that were thin air, and nobody had ever done that before, and people were hysterical. A little bit later on, back up to 1923 or 24, all of these people at the Algonquin Round Table got together for lunch and hanging around and drinking great quantities of grapefruit juice.
Copious amounts.
Of grapefruit juice.
And they decided that they were all complaining about how bad Broadway was, how bad the shows were. The actors were terrible, the scripts were stupid, the actors were incompetent. And so,
this is including Dorothy Parker, too?
Yeah, Dorothy Parker's at the table.
Right.
And they said, and somebody said, and nobody can identify who, but somebody said, well, why don't we write our own play? So that's what they did. So there was a big hit on Broadway called Yes Sirree.
Okay.
And it ran for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. So the people at the Algonquin Round Table wrote their own play called No Siree. And part of the play was Benchley's part of it called The Treasurer's Report. And he pretended that he misunderstood what was going on, and he wasn't there to act. He was there to give a report of the committee's finances. And it was hysterical. It was absolutely crazy, hysterical. No one had ever done that before. Irving Berlin, the writer, was sitting in the audience, and he was hysterical. And he had a show on Broadway called the Music Box Review. This is in 23, 24. The average wage in the United States was about $25 or $30 a week. You worked 60 hours a week and you were making $25 or $30. If you were really a skilled worker, a top-end carpenter or tool and die maker, you might be making $40. But that was a lot of money.
Oh, back then, yes.
Irving Berlin comes up to Benchley and says, I want you to do this in my show. And Benchley says, I don't want to. No, this is a one-time thing. I don't want to do this. And Irving Berlin says, I got to have it. I'll give you anything you want. And Benchley said, I want $500 a week. And Irving Berlin said, okay, but you better be funny.
Well, yeah, Berlin. Yeah, he was mighty powerful back then. And he owned his own theater, right?
He owned his own chain of theaters.
Yeah.
So he was a big guy. But he gave Benchley the opportunity to do the Treasures Report. It was a smash. They sold out all of the shows. They went on tour with it. It was so popular that this brand new technology called movies, but movies been around for a while, but these were talking movies.
These were talking movies, yes.
So he decided.
Oh, we got to do an Algonquin shot.
We have to have
Algonquin shot. That's right. We said Algonquin, so we have to have a shot.
Cheers.
So they decided.
It's supposed to be fake.
Oh, don't tell them.
Oh, don't tell them that. It tastes pretty good. It smells good.
They'll think it's fake.
Smell-o-vision? Can we do that?
Smell-o-vision.
So they decided to take the Treasures Report and make a movie of it. So Robert Benchley made a 12-minute version of the Treasures Report, which is the first talking movie ever made. Everybody thinks it's The Jazz Singer. The Jazz Singer was made.
Really?
The Jazz Singer was made a year prior. However, if you remember about The Jazz Singer, it was all cue cards with some talking and mostly singing inserted into the movie. Benchley's movie was the first one that went reel to reel, all talking. It was the first one ever done.
Wow.
That started him on his little career of movie making. He subsequently made about 75 short subjects, which were largely based on the articles that he wrote for Vanity Fair and the New Yorker and the Detroit Athletic Club
Tanya,
News.
You have a clip, right?
I have a clip.
we have a clip.
We don't even know what
Yeah.
Robert looks like. We should.
You'll recognize him. The thing is,
we're gonna play it now, and check it out. This is Robert.
This is Robert Benchley, and this is what he did. You'll recognize
This
him.
is the guy, the funny guy.
The funny guy. Everybody's
I know,
best
that's where
friend.
I first saw him, was in movies.
In movies. That's where everybody recognizes him from. And he's got one of those faces and one of those acts that you'll recognize when you see it, but you never knew his name.
No.
Yep.
No, but here it comes. There it is.
Recognize a Robert Benchley short.
Splendid, it must be. Hey, how do you know about that?
Now, to begin with, each and every Robert Benchley short film requires Robert Benchley.
Well, what is Benchley?
Well, really, Mr. Benchley is one of America's premier humorists.
Thank you very much.
Robert Charles Benchley, Harvard class of 1950 and charter member of the Algonquin Round Table, and yet very much a man of the people.
And tell them, big boy!
Thank you. Where was I? Oh yes, how to recognize one of Mr. Benchley's films. We begin with Hollywood in the 1930s, specifically the MGM studios. MGM was looking for new stars to appear in the short subjects that played between feature films, and Mr. Benchley certainly had star quality. But you won't recognize one of his films for its musical bent, nor, despite his successful run on Broadway, was he known for his terpsichorean skills or his sleight of hand.
I can't watch this.
Rather, he was a lecturer and raconteur.
And I, for one, would not have it different.
As such, he created a screen persona who represented the average man.
Joseph A. Dokes, D-O-A-K-E-S.
In fact, his films were a testament to the average man's trouble with everyday life.
Who left that door open?
And by introducing a fair amount of comedy, Mr. Benchley was enormously successful, even managing to acquire an Oscar for his short film, How to Sleep.
It's all very exciting.
From the instructional to the intriguing to the purely entertaining, a Robert Benchley film can always be recognized for its stylish approach to the everyday.
You get the idea.
Robert Benchley,
Are there any questions?
a man who always had the answers.
Okay. And we're back.
We're back?
we're back.
We're back.
And that's you've seen that face 100 times,
Yep.
but you never knew who he was. It was Robert Benchley. He's the second banana to everybody, to Clark Gable, to Hope and Crosby, to everybody, and that's where most people found Benchley. However, prior to that, he had a huge career as a writer.
Well, let's tell them. I want you to keep telling me about that. And while
Okay.
you tell me, I want to go to another picture that we have of him.
Of Benchley, yeah.
Yeah. Just we have Jem Priore. He's helping us out here in the studio tonight. And
He's doing it.
He's doing a great job. Thank you, Jem.
There he
So,
is.
okay, go ahead and keep telling me. I just wanted everybody to see a picture of them.
Mr. Benchley was basically was a writer, and he was a reviewer for, as I say, Life magazine and for the New Yorker magazine. But he also had a connection with the Detroit Athletic Club. The Detroit Athletic Club, of course, in Detroit, was a conglomeration of automotive types, people like Henry Ford and the Buick brothers,
The money people.
the Dodge people.
I had no idea when you first told me about the Detroit Athletic Club. I thought it was like a club where boxers go. That's exactly what I thought it was.
But that's exactly what it started out to be. In 1882, when the Detroit Athletic Club was first put together, it was an athletic club. They had a football team, they had a boxing team, they had a swimming team, they had a track team. They held meets and competitions, and that's what they had because there was no other venues.
But then how did it turn into a secret? It's like a secret rich society.
It's not exactly that. What happened was
to not exercise.
Of cool.
Well, what happened was that's what everybody thinks. But even to this day, they still field basketball teams and baseball teams and softball teams and swimming teams. What happened was, as this brand new invention called the automobile was being put together, all these car guys around Detroit were hanging around and talking about, transmissions and gear ratios and all that kind of stuff. And they would hang around at the Pontchartrain Hotel in Detroit. And they would come in for lunch or come in the afternoon and, throw a transmission up on the table, and the white linen tablecloths were getting full of grease and stuff. And the Pontchartrain people said, it might be a good idea to have your own little kind of a club type of a thing. So you don't dirty ours, basically.
Really?
And so a bunch of these guys got together and put together a revision of the Detroit Athletic Club. And it contained people like Henry Joy Road, Newberry, Charlie Hughes, who was a newspaper guy, who actually became the editor of the Detroit Athletic Club News. And their mandate was to get the very best that they could get in everything. The best restaurant, the best athletic facilities, the best writers for their magazine, the best of everything for their members. Right. And the members would join clubs. Clubs have kind of disappeared. Men's clubs in particular, women's clubs also came on, but they've also faded. We have a great club here in Ann Arbor, the Ann Arbor Women's City Club. Mm-hmm. Great club from that same era. And what Charlie Hughes did as editor of the Detroit Athletic Club News was take a house organ, basically an internal, like a school publishes their own little newspaper.
Right.
And this club published its own little newspaper, except these were all automotive people, and they had all the money in the world.
Okay.
So their internal organ, their house organ, ran to 190 pages a month. And they had the best writers in the world.
And no one's seen these articles for...
No one's seen these articles for 60 years.
And you and you can get this book all over now, right?
Yeah, this book is now available at Barnes & Noble, your independent book dealer. You can get it at Nicola's. If they haven't got it in stock, they can get it. You can go to our website and get it at glendowermedia.com.
Also Amazon.
Amazon, yeah. Amazon's a big help to us.
Well, you got some really, I checked out the Amazon reviews.
She's been cheating. She's been doing homework.
And
She's did homework?
yes. A little tiny bit. Anyway, there's some really good ones. We sometimes forget the brilliance of the great Robert Benchley, and kudos to you for reminding us. And George says this is a must read. And let's see here. This is interesting. I'm hoping that they don't have any big words in it, though. As we slog through the first decade of the 21st century, it is comforting to note that literary discoveries of real importance can still be made. So what we have here is a compilation of stories by the noted observer of all things human.
Yeah, the fun thing about these articles is that these were written for the members of the Detroit Athletic Club. A lot of them got gathered and subsequently published as Benchley's books. This was the basis for his books that were very popular, with titles like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea or David Copperfield, or The Treasurer's Report was one.
Right, and there's a lot of how-tos.
How-to, yeah. A lot of his movies came out of the stuff that he wrote for the DAC and Liberty Magazine.
And the classes of travel. There's two classes of travel. I love this one.
First class and with children. Traveling with children corresponds to third class Bulgarian travel.
Now there's still a Robert Benchley Society today,
yes,
right? That you are a member of.
I are a member.
I want my own society.
An Ipsy Girl Society?
Yeah.
I think we should do that.
We'll have to start one.
Yeah.
I think you already have one, actually.
Yeah.
Cafe Society.
Cafe Society.
The Robert Benchley Society sponsors a writing contest every year. So if you think you're funny, and we're not talking about looks, and you think you can write, they sponsor a contest every year, and it's generally in the fall.
Okay.
It starts in the spring and it ends like about October. And basically what you're supposed to be doing is writing in the spirit of Benchley. Originally we wanted it in the style of Benchley, but that's virtually impossible to do.
Okay.
Because he is so subtle about what he does that a lot of the stuff that was considered hysterical in his era is only mildly amusing. Some of the
Right.
stuff is still hysterical because it's hysterical.
It
I've read
is.
some of those articles though, and I'm amazed how they in the vein. You'd believe that he wrote them. And how are we doing on time? We don't want to.
We don't
run over
wanna
here.
run
What do we got left? 3 minutes.
3 minutes left. Okay.
3 whole minutes. Well, you can do a whole new show on 3 minutes. Are you
boy.
kidding?
But yeah, I read those and I went, how can they do this? They put themselves right in and still write it in a modern way. And
Yeah,
it's just wonderful. You've written.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you won an award, right?
Yeah, I was one of the contestants for the Robert Benchley Award in 2005, and I won that, and that's how they got me into the Benchley
Okay.
Society. So they got me in, and then they put me on the board of directors, so I can't compete anymore.
Oh.
Well, we only got 2 minutes. So I think should we?
Yeah, we have to start wrapping it up. But if people want more information,
They can
what
go-
is the site again?
They can go right to the website, which is Glendower Media, GLENDOWER Media.com.
Okay.
And all of the stuff is right there, including a whole history of Robert Benchley written by Ed Tosca, and information on the book and other books. that
I'll
we've
do
got
a
coming
link too from ipsygirl.com.
up. Cool.
Okay.
Cool. And we will link to, of course, we have to link to Ipsy Girl, too.
We like back.
I like to link to Ipsy Girl.
He does.
Yeah, but you're married.
I love you, baby.
We meet somewhere around the middle.
Thank you for hosting our 10th show today. This is our 10th show.
10th
This
show,
is our 10th
wow.
show.
Thank you
and
for
thank
having
you.
me.
The Benchley
Thank you
Show at
so
number
much,
10.
Tom, for being our guest. And of course, Folk It, A3
Oh,
Radio's
yes.
Folk
Radio.
It. When
One
is
of the
that
finest
on?
live.
Sunday evenings at 6 o'clock in the evening, and a couple times a month, sometimes 3 times a month, but certainly twice. We have live shows in our studio, and they're free.
Oh,
so come
so
on
much
down.
fun. Jesse and I go. We love it.
We had a great show last week, didn't we?
It was
fun.
great.
We're,
we gotta
we're
go.
down to seconds, so I
We're,
think we
we're
gotta
on our
close this
way.
out.
Thank you so much, Tom. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.